do you feel about the state of VR? I asked you this question a little while back when we caught wind of a company that was making a VR engine that seamlessly integrated with Unreal Engine. And with the near bottomless amount of money that Epic Games has ever since Fortnite, I thought it was a really strong solution for the present problem in the VR space, about needing a kind of a good baseline or an industry standard of mechanics that are tried, tested, and beloved by VR fans. So many of you got back to me with brilliant insights and fun perspectives on why things might be the way they are in the VR space. Much appreciated, by the way. As well as a lot of people talking about how much I say physics weird and saying there's no X in there, GRINN, and I'm like, yeah, I won't change for you. I wouldn't ask you to change for me. I'm not gonna change for you. This is one of them take it or leave it situations. Anyways, but with all the lovely comments, there was one that stood out in a very, very big way. It was simply telling me to check out a game called Project EX. To my surprise, it was a video on the most advanced VR physics system I had ever seen, along with the really thoughtful and clear design principles that were explained and made all the sense in the world. So after watching a couple videos, I sat back and decided to watch every single one of these videos on this project, and oh boy, is this project so brilliant. First things first, one of the most important things to know is most physics VR sims are using a lot of band-aids that kind of take away from what the physics engine is kind of supposed to do. An example being, if something's not working, let's just add code to solve that problem and not solve the problem of why the physics is even breaking in the first place. Maybe creating a different system where the physics can actually integrate and seamlessly flow between each other. Instead of doing that, let's just solve the problem at hand with some code. And you basically create a kind of band-aid effect, which works for sure, but also kind of conflicts with a lot of things. If you keep layering code after code after code, like kind of quick solution after quick solution, it might break things, especially when they interact. And in turn, not really being a true physics sim. Maybe some parts are very physics-based, but not a lot of it integrates seamlessly with it. And the reason for this is probably time. It's much easier just to kind of create a quick bit of code that solves the problem. A great example is this video right here.
Now you'll notice this one is not a physics object, so I'm not able to push it around, right? And that's because this is just purely IK. So this is how inverse kinematics works. You take one position there, you take one position there, you do some clever maths, and the end result, it gives the system the rotations, it calculates those rotations, and the hand is always at the correct position as a result. But obviously, we have a problem. You see, if we have a physics-based system like I have here, we now want to decide what happens when a physics object is here. So, what you'd expect to happen is either it pushes in, it pushes to the side, or it pushes to the other side. That's what we expect to happen. To control these 2 points, we're going to have to do a bunch of calculations. It doesn't really work out very well in terms of how we want to control things in an easy way. Over to this side. Now this side, it may look like the same thing. As you can see, very similar thing happens. However, the thing with this, it's purely physics. There's actually no inverse kinematic calculation going on. But you can see now, with this, I can push the elbow. I can push the elbow exactly where I want it to go. And that's precisely the reason that I wanted to use this type of logic. There is absolutely no IK going on here. There's no inverse kinematic calculation. I don't care what that rotation is, and I don't care what that rotation is. But the physics engine simulates it regardless.
Now, a lot of you might be saying, well, why does this matter? After watching all those videos and the gameplay that you're currently seeing on screen constantly, it just looks so much more stable. It's the equivalent of a fix versus a true solution, a true system that is built to last and is built to handle these kinds of things, and many different variables and many different instances to actually math out and survive in. That's the only way some of this stuff can make sense, where you're able to jump in water on a floating balloon and actually move and not have everything clip like crazy, conflict with each other, slap around, and jitter. All the things we're used to in VR with our hands phasing through objects, or the table that we're trying to grab a cup on, or something weird that takes you out of it. NIM's system seemingly takes a little bit more time, but oh my god, is the reward stability and structure and not getting slapped out of your immersive state whilst being in VR. It looks so good. Okay, so after watching a lot of these videos about this project, there are these moments that I can't describe, but if you've ever played VR, or even if you don't, things just look so right. There's these moments of brilliance that Nim, as he's filming it, I don't think recognizes that this is a what? That, you can do that? That looks so good. I've never seen that in VR either look that good or function in that way. Most times when we're interacting with these things break. But the fact that Nim can actually meld these things together and it not look like a jarring, jittery hellscape that's just like, kill me, we're not supposed to touch. It's like oil and water. And instead, it just works. Good old Todd Howard, keeping it alive. All right, let's start out with how amazing this swordplay looks, where you're actually able to catch a sword and push it away, and then going for the kill. So often in games like Blade and Sorcery, swords kind of just clang off each other and quickly find their way back to the placement of the hand, kind of like a rubber band. Where here, you can see them actually have an opening. That force that you push or slide through actually leaves the enemy's hand kind of opening up for a split second. And if I'm not mistaken, this is just using the base physics engine of the game without any sort of band-aids applied. But I will say also, this changes when you add an NPC that also has attacks and their own joint strength and so on and so forth. But regardless, it looks so smooth. And on top of the most satisfying swordplay I've ever seen, you can imagine how many options there are with your body actually being present and things not just clipping through or kind of having this stutter when you press things against them. Like being able to do something like this, where you're able to wrap an enemy's weapon underneath your arm or trap their arm with your own arm, or using your body in a judo throw as you spin. Because your body actually exists, it would add more mass to your actual impact. It's just so good. On top of just, good old faithful strangling people with your actual existing elbow. Albeit, I imagine that looks kind of weird. Anyways, another really interesting idea that I've seen with this whole project is the idea of a VR pull mechanic. A lot of times we just pull a weapon to our hand and it snaps into our hand place. Great. Maybe we have to reach a little bit, hit the grab button, but our hand largely just snaps and grabs it, right? Well, this is an amazing system, especially if you played games like Half-Life Alyx, but it can be improved. And the way Nim's improved, I think, is brilliant. Essentially, you pull the weapon near your chest. Essentially, it's in front of you. And this is great because sometimes you want to grab a weapon by the head of the hammer, we could say a sledgehammer, and then just do a quick little jab, and that'll be plenty enough to knock an enemy unconscious or something, right? Like that, right? And maybe sometimes we don't want that. Maybe we want to grab the far end of it, and we don't want to have to do that weird Bone Lab slide your hand around a metal pole just to be able to get to where you want. So this is just a really nice idea for you to be able to grab a weapon really quick in the way that you want to do it, without it kind of having a set pose that your hand just snaps to, right? Not only that, but this also acts as a fun force, essentially, where you're able to like topple over a barrel that might have chemicals in it or something fun. Or, and this is what Nim pointed out, which is very neat, which is basically using it as like a kind of puzzle utility set. So if you want to swing across this massive gap, you can force pull the swinging rope, grab onto it, and then swing over. Or maybe there's a key that you have to like nudge through a maze and eventually get it to drop out the bottom. Things like that would be so fun. Another thing is the kind of dynamic / soft grab. Or touch mechanic, I guess we could call it. There's an amazing video where Nim just goes off on how a lot of these VR games have this like snappy movement, which usually results in you like knocking over a bunch of shit on a table, but it doesn't always have to be that way. You can have a very soft grab where you intentionally grab things that you're near. And the gameplay you're seeing may look not quite perfect, like sometimes your hands are spiked and then they kind of morph around the object, but I also think that Nim hasn't applied hand poses yet, which I think that'd be a pretty easy fix to make it so your hand's more wide than it is clenched, I guess. And perhaps one of the biggest things that I can't even describe it, but the more you look at it, the more you're like, oh, oh wow. This project has so many answers to movement, it's crazy. From climbing being more responsive and clever, swinging having like proper animations, from diving animations, which your character actually like lines up perfectly. Also swimming stuff that's wild, which we'll talk about in a minute. From also a running system of you kind of just bouncing and forth, massively increasing your movement. I cannot say enough about the movement system, with the only takeaway that I have being like, oh my god, yes, please give me this. Also, holy shit, that's terrifying. Can you imagine some horrifying developer makes a vent that tiny where you have to squeeze through it like this? I hate it. I'm not very claustrophobic, but I'm claustrophobic enough. Holy shit, no. Again, there could be a whole video based on like the clever movement designs. Again, there's one where you don't even need controllers, and this project has found a way of actually being able to have you use just your hands and work, which is crazy. Moving quickly along, again, the avatar system is present here, something you're akin to seeing in stuff like Bone Lab, but this time things like strength actually make sense. Being able to use Master Chief, for instance, a super soldier, metal pickaxe, and drive it through steel, and then switching to someone like Mario or someone else, maybe like Kirby, someone who's weaker potentially, and having a really hard time to pull that out of that metal joint. There is also Pierce in this game, that's kind of what I'm talking about with this, but just how that can play in tandem and actually have a meaningful effect outside of just being much stronger. It actually has an application of you having more force to be able to drive things into other materials like concrete, steel, things like that. As well as the avatars just making more sense as far as being able to like crawl, how the body interacts with you having a beer gut, and instead of in most games how it doesn't really it's just not a thing, like it clips through the ground when you're crawling. Instead, it actually accounts for a lot of it. And it has realistic enough poses to where you're actually like army crawling, which looks pretty believable. Granted, you're on an absolutely, free character like Eggman. And some good old sugar on top is the avatar system, just having good walking animations. And also we have weird stuff, just like absolutely strange stuff where you're able to tie a ball bearing, a giant weight ball essentially on your foot, and then your avatar will basically start like limping, like his foot's being held back, like proper physics. And then you're also able to throw that into water and drowned brutally. And if you're, it looks so good. It looks so good, although, what the fuck? This is just a lot. Anyway, all this to me is exceptionally mind-blowing, but not as mind-blowing as this. If anyone has experienced anything in VR when it comes to water, holy shit. Not only does the swimming look fantastic, but the fact that you're able to take water, and then you're able to take a ball that is a physics-based object, like a ball, and you're able to run in it, and the two things, the water physics and then the ball physics, to not implode after they bash against each other, because the code is just like, this was band-aided together, these were never meant to integrate, God kill me please, and then it literally sends you 10 feet flying. The fact that this is just working so well is insane to me. Again, this might be a very deep cut for anyone who like plays with mods and sees how like other modders are trying to like do this, and it's just like, these are not systems that are meant to work together, and it just all breaks. That is absolutely crazy, and I hope that gets across the point that so many VR games nowadays are held together by band-aids and a dream. A dream probably to make a game and make money on it, just because holy shit, we're gonna go under if we don't do that. Now, not everything is rainbows and lollipops. There are still some things that, even with this project being as amazing as it is, hasn't shown. These are problems that just must be astronomical in how brutal they are. One of those things is good NPCs. Despite, I think, Nim talking about it a little bit, I have not seen a good NPC system yet in any VR system, really. They're always confused, very not immersive at all. Like you don't believe they're a human. If anything, they look like aliens, like pretending to be humans. It's just very odd, very jarring. Their difficulty isn't there. They have like soulless eyes. You don't connect with them in any way. They're just like meat puppets in a weird way. Maybe that's for the best, because VR you can do really fucked up things. I don't know. Regardless, haven't seen a good NPC yet. Hopefully that changes. Another thing I haven't seen from the project is essentially more dynamic levels. Basically things loading in. Say we have a big level where you go into one room, you do this fun puzzle, and then you go into another room, you climb up this jungle gym using the cool system, and then you go into another room, which then you play with guns. I don't know how. We haven't seen any of that yet. We haven't seen if there's like a culling system, so your PC doesn't just melt, or your standalone headset doesn't just fucking kill itself. I haven't seen anything like that. It's usually an open plane, which albeit is awesome and perfect for testing, doesn't quite push it, I guess, to see if this is actually something that can be used as a developer system to render levels and so on and so forth. I imagine it can, but just wanted to point that out. The last thing I'll point out that I was kind of disappointed not to see, but I kind of get it at this point because it's not quite the goal of this project, but there is no systems really. There's kind of systems, I guess I should say. There's some spawnable things, but when I say systems, I mean things that make a game a game. Whether that's the system I still want to see in Bone Lab, which is a system of like leveling up your character so that you start off as a bog standard villager, and then maybe you keep pumping points into strength, and maybe your character grows muscles, maybe he doesn't, maybe he just stays bog standard, but regardless, you being able to invest points into strength, skill point after skill point after skill point, and then you actually have a noticeably strong character. Same thing with things like stamina. I just haven't seen systems like that. Even something as simple as like a quest log, like where you open up a book and then you say like start this side quest or something like that. I haven't seen those systems in very few games. The only game I've really seen it in is Saints and Sinners, and yeah, just not a lot of games seemingly have those things, which is unfortunate because those are things that kind of make a game outside of just a engine that you can kind of make fun in, which is good, but also be cool to see systems in this game in that way. Specifically, there's definitely systems, but just not quite in that way. But with all those problems being not quite problems, just kind of hopes for the future and problems I haven't seen even this amazing project tackle yet, there is one problem that to me is massive and is undoubtedly extremely selfish by yours truly. And that is, where is this game? And what is the maker of this fantastic project, system, engine, and game? What is the goal? Having watched all of these videos on the project, you can't help but see that Nim has talked about a demo for a long time, like 4 years in the making, long time. And I don't want to rush the development of this in any way, but damn, it's definitely been a good bit of time. And like I said, I don't really know what Nim's plan is. Pause, I actually think I found a comment that speaks to his goal and what the future of this project is. He talks about in the comment basically of wanting to license out this engine to people, which is a big win. This is kind of the entire topic of what we talked about last time talking about the state of VR, about how it would be really convenient if there was a good baseline for VR mechanics, something that you didn't have to recreate from the ground zero, but instead could just leverage an already existing, really well-tuned engine. One that took a long time to make, but also looks like it. But alongside the idea of him actually licensing out this engine, he also talks about how he wants to first make his own game with said engine, which honestly makes a lot of sense. The last thing I'm assuming you'd want if you put this much time into something is somebody dirtying the well, making a bad game, throwing it on Steam, and then people start to look down at the engine thinking that it's nothing special. Better for the guy that made the entire complex system and knows how it works to really push it to the absolute breaking point and leverage it. And on top of that, Nim's also said in previous videos that he's interested in doing a GoFundMe of a kind, and just starting to look for funding with this idea, taking it to the next level. And to tell you the truth, as a person who's literally never ever spent anything into GoFundMe, because things are plenty expensive nowadays, I think I'd actually break up my credit card and support him, even though I grew up in the age where we don't do that online, but hey, I think for this project I would, cause the one thing I'm certain of is that this VR community is a lot better off having Nim creating in it. If by chance you ever see this, Nim, I hope your vision of the future of VR wins out. And I hope whenever you're done with that demo, or a fully fledged game for that matter, you know that there'll be people here to support you. It's funny, I recently seen that one of the videos he did really well. It exploded and got a ton of new people seeing it, and that's heartwarming to see. But with more attention also brings more critique, or ignorance, I should say. And oh my god, was it so frustrating to see. I seen this one comment that just broke my heart and frustrated me to no end. The TLDR for the comment was essentially, this is nothing new, I've seen this in other games, this is simply him just decreasing the weight in certain objects, nothing special here. And then Nim replying to that comment kindly, saying that that's not what's happening at all, asking if he even watched the video. And the person had the gall to comment back, could you give me a timestamp of where you talk about it or clarify it, or even just release the demo already so that we can play with it and see it for ourselves? And I just started steaming, boys. What the fuck? This guy's making a thing for free and making you a demo, and you're just talking out your ass, talking about how this is not it just drove me nuts. Not only did you reduce this person's effort and make an assumption based on zero fucking, just the whole, like, I didn't watch the video, I'm gonna shit all over this. You're just the worst kind of human on the planet, you know what I mean? God damn it. I've run YouTube for 10 years. I've seen criticism aplenty when it's for me, but when it's for other people like this, especially if you watch the fucking Nim videos, the dude is just doing his best. It's not like he's sitting out here shitting on people. It's just him being like, I love fucking Sonic too much, and it's just Mario's the shit, and it's all this stuff. So it's just stupid. It's just the worst shit to see. But with that being said, a lot of people did see this and also got really excited for the hopeful demo eventually coming out. Outside of stuff like that being extremely frustrating just to see even as a viewer, I can only imagine how rough that is for Nim. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I think it speaks to a kind of a intrinsic problem that presents itself within Nim's work, where a lot of people just assume this is something that they've seen before, that this is nothing special and that this is just the bog standard thing, and unfortunately overlook all of the clever systems that so many developers left to just by the wayside. And it sucks that it seems like we keep living in a world where people who try their hardest and came up with a good solution get stomped on by people who do it quicker and more broken and with less heart. Again, I don't mean to get doom and gloom with you, but it seems like we live in a world where plenty of brilliant and kind people get overlooked and their creation thrown away, not because it's not innovative, but because people just assume it's worse or something that they've seen before, despite of how different it is and how much better the answers are. And this is just a problem that I can't see getting less big, because so many people just assume it's worse, or that a big development team of devs who are fucking sleep deprived and working on 5 different projects that they don't care about because some very expensive executive wants them to do it because their live services are popping and so on and so forth, despite those devs knowing it's an oversaturated market and nigh impossible to do, and they're going to be the one fired when it doesn't succeed. People can't even imagine it'd be better than a one guy who's much more thoughtful and much more passionate could possibly create. Anyways, the point I'm trying to get at here is support Nim. Boy howdy, some people are ignorant as hell and are just going to jump in there and reduce his work and his cool systems down to something that they have seen before, despite it is likely not that. Frustration and annoyance aside, I am still very hopeful for this game. And again, I cannot wait to support it when it finally launches. I hope you guys seen something that I seen. I hope that you guys seen those moments of absolute brilliance where it's almost insane that this thing works as well as it is, and how we haven't seen a lot of this stuff in VR games like it, and the fact that it's super heartwarming that my hopeful thing that I've been hoping so badly for the VR game industry to have, which is a good baseline, a good engine that can kind of integrate with anything, might actually happen within our lifetime. Hopefully. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk about news stuff. I'll also probably be uploading like a bunch of random tiny other videos because I want to try that out. Love you. Bye. Okay.